Come, let us explore the toxic lies about depression we must avoid. One moment, I gotta blow my nose, sorry. So I'm going to tap button 5, and hopefully that will improve things. So many years ago, in the late 80s, I was attending a meeting of a religious organization. And from the pulpit, the minister proclaimed, well, I don't see how anyone could ever be depressed if they knew about Jesus Christ. And it took all my self-control just to sit in my seat and not tackle him and introduce him to God firsthand, show him the error of his ways. Um, that is not uncommon. Let me jump forward real quick. So Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything, and everyone sucks. To put a finer point on that, 90% of adults are happy to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And they actively oppose those who choose to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. So elitist and superstitious folks are keen to practice victim blaming. So what are some of the ways people victim blame those who are depressed? Well, they call them weak. They call them faithless. They tell them that they believe in a self. That's popular amongst um, Buddhist fools. There are fools everywhere. So there are Christian fools, there are Muslim fools, there are Jewish fools, there are, oh, what's it called? Um, Buddhist fools, there are Taoist fools, there are Hindu fools. There's no shortage of foolish humans, sadly enough. But what is depression? What if the symptoms of depression, the lethargy, loss of physical zeal, the loss of emotional zeal, the loss of intellectual interest, the desire to lie in a cool, dark place or a warm, dark place and just withdraw. What if those weren't psychological disorders, but rather psychological symptoms of a physiological disorder? Now, please forgive my spelling. Oh, that's absurd. Let's go back. Okay. I'm a big fan of Dr. Michael Greger. He's an MD. He hosts, what's it called? nutritionfacts.org. He can be found on YouTube. In fact, there's a link to his channel in the description area below the video under the heading Freebies. So this MD, who fully licensed, who specializes in meta-analysis, has found that there's a tremendous, highly suspicious overlap between the symptoms of depression and the symptoms of just having a cold or the flu. So in the 70s, a wonderful biologist proclaimed that the mysteries of, let me write this down, the mysteries of biology only make sense in light of evolution. So we have to ask the question, what is the evolutionary advantage of when you have a cold, when you have the flu, when you have anything, a contagious disease, to withdraw and lay down? Well, personally, it gives you your body the chance to marshal its finite resources to fight an infection or to hopefully heal an injury. On the group level, if someone is infected and they withdraw from the group, the odds of them infecting the rest of the group diminish profoundly. In science, we look for large sample size, and so we find that the behavioral symptoms of infection, of having a cold or the flu, are not unique to one city in America. They're not unique to one state in America. They're not unique to one country in North America. They're not unique to one continent on the planet. They are ubiquitous. They are universal. And we don't just see this in humans. We see this in most species, this exact same behavior. So a hypothesis was developed. Oopsie. Boy, spelling is just not my favorite thing. Okay, so there was a hypothesis. What if is there a common denominator between every illness and depression? That could be a second order cause of this behavior. And they found one. The common denominator is systemic inflammation. And so a study was done, and I have a terrible memory because of neurodivergence. But a study was done, and when they treated every person diagnosed with depression as if they were not emotionally depressed, but merely exhibiting emotional symptoms of the physiological disorder whose primary presenting symptom was systemic inflammation. So they gathered those people, they treated the systemic inflammation, and every one of them showed marked improvement and all their quote unquote symptoms of depression in a week without any psychiatric interventions, without any talk therapy, just through lifestyle changes. Now, I'm not like what's his face Kennedy. If the only thing keeping someone from suiciding is SSRIs, then by all means they should be under the care of a really competent psychiatrist. However, these MDs have found, these researchers have found, that when you treat systemic inflammation, the symptoms of depression diminish. You cannot treat systemic inflammation through a positive mental attitude. You cannot treat systemic inflammation by really believing in your God or deity or imaginary person in the sky of your choice. You cannot treat systemic inflammation through philosophizing extra hard. Um, you cannot treat systemic inflammation through just meditation. The easiest way to treat systemic inflammation are lifestyle therapies. And here they are. They're not radical. You've heard them before. Get to bed early. Get as much sleep as you need. Turn off your alarm. Get up when your body says it's time to get up, not when your schedule says it's time to get up. Because if you are exhibiting the symptoms of depression, you're fighting for your life. So, sleep, fresh air, sunshine, exercise, these things help. And if all you're able to do is take off your shirt and walk to the edge of the driveway and back at high noon, well, that's something. These things, oh yes, eating the foods that we have evolved to thrive on. Not only is a well-planned, whole food, vegan diet safe for each sector, for all humans during each stage of development, assuming that they're not infants who are still suckling, because the optimal food for infants is literally the milk of their mother. But for all weaned humans, now, it not only is veganism safe and suitable, but a well-planned whole food vegan diet is, when compared to every other diet, has the lowest all-cause mortality. From a purely science point of view, that should get our attention. I was raised in Southern California. I was raised, to eat steak and chicken and fish and pork occasionally. So I was not raised on a commune by hippies. I was raised by capitalists in Southern California. And yet, um, even as a child, I remember lamenting the murder of animals for food. I wasn't exceptional as a child, and I'm not the only child to have that idea. Do we really need to kill animals? They're so beautiful. They're so sweet. I want to hug them. I don't want to kill them. Um, this is a universal this phenomena. You can go on YouTube and find kids all over the world crying, saying, "I don't want to eat animals anymore." Uncoached. You see this in different countries and in different genders. So this is not unique. Some of the greatest athletes in the world, some of the greatest elite athletes are on a whole food vegan diet. Some of the longest lived humans on the planet are practicing, just spontaneously practicing lifestyle therapies, including a whole food vegan diet. Not only is it safe to eat a whole food vegan diet, and not only can it be fun and delicious, it is, if you're an athlete or you want to live to a ripe old age, it's fabulous. I might not be as pretty as I was when I was 19, but I don't look my age because for many decades I've been on a whole food vegan diet. People who have what I have, people who have both autism and ADHD and CPTSD and all the comorbidities often present with symptoms of depression because their wiring is just so harmed by the disorders that they have. And yet, despite all those, I'm able to manage a large amount of my symptoms simply through lifestyle therapies. Once again, I still see doctors. I still see neurologists. I'm not a wackadoodle. I think modern medicine is a wonderful thing, and when practiced ethically and when researched ethically, it can be a fantastic boon for humanity. But we evolved to have very small picture thinking. For the majority of time that hominids have been on this planet, we didn't have to think very much to survive. And so we evolved to be very, very quick decision makers. But we've reached a point in our evolution where if we are going to continue to live on this planet with each other, we must nurture big picture thinking, not just seeing symptoms, but seeing causes of symptoms and causes of causes of symptoms and causes and causes of causes of symptoms. First order thinking, second order thinking, third order thinking. This is not unique. Scientists and deep thinkers have been talking about this for a very long time. So yes, if someone is in an accident and they're bleeding out, the first thing you need to do is first aid. Apply a compress or a tourniquet, call 911, get them in the hospital. But you also need to look at a larger order thing. What caused the accident? And then you have to look at a second order thing. What were the causes of the accident? And that applies to every facet of human life, including the symptoms that we call depression. Now, I have no hate for therapists. Heaven knows I saw many therapists growing up because back in the late 60s and early 70s, people were saying that everything was psychosomatic. And now science is showing that no, there are largely physiological disorders with psychological symptoms. And although counseling could be helpful in certain cases, we can often be barking up the wrong tree if the physiological causes of the presenting problems are not addressed. And this concludes our opening lesson. Now it's time that we shift gears. It is General Leia Organa's Saturday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Renegade Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I harnessed my autistic special interests and my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So, what I'd like to do now is adjust my tush because it's tired. And turn now to the latest iteration of very easy meditation. Together let us recite, relaxingly recite. Whatever comes, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Whatever stays, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Whatever goes, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Upon the tip of our left index finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite or real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the crown region of our head. So let us take a moment to review mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. What are we to do with that which we notice? Why, we meditate upon it. But how does that work? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, divided between the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord. Our parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. So, we see that it's far more beneficial to cooperate with these mechanisms than compete against them. Well then, how do we cooperate with them in a more efficient manner, or in the most efficient manner? Simple. We silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this and the one-syllable verb ease during our respective inhalations and exhalations. Together, let us practice right now. Upon the tip of our left little finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the bladder region of our lower abdomen. During each inhalation, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception. You know, sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imagining. Oopsie, that's an error. Let's go back here. What are we to do with that which we perceive? Well, we meditate. During our exhalation, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, we are already wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Therefore, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this and the one-syllable verb ease during our respective inhalations and exhalations. By the way, I'd like to return to the opening lesson for a moment. If someone is born into a family or a culture that is steeped in a religion, regardless of what that religion is, if that religion promotes and conditions its adherents to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, then there's going to be a certain demographic who are going to find that deeply stressful. For whatever reason. Stress affects our body because of the laws of neuroplasticity. Stress changes our central nervous system. So there's always going to be a certain demographic that does not thrive in that circumstance, whether that circumstance is religious or secular, it doesn't matter. I have met both atheists and religious folk alike who could be described by that outline. But anybody born into that circumstance as a child who has no agency, as a child who is a round peg being hammered into a square hole, is going to experience greater stress, both emotionally as well as physiologically, because emotions are things. They're not ideas, they're not thoughts, they are physical phenomena occurring in our central nervous system, affecting our peripheral nervous system and all the attending organs. So, for someone in that situation, it is profoundly unusual for them not to develop systemic inflammation. And so the question is not if they will, but how long it'll take them, and will they get the care they need. So this phenomena is not unique to the soft, decadent lifestyle of Southern California. It's a ubiquitous phenomena. One of the greatest ironies was voiced in the Gospels, which quotes something from the Old Testament, and I'm going to paraphrase. The block the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. One of the great ironies is that so often not always, but there are people who are differently abled, who have great minds, who are able to arrive at great solutions to some of the more ubiquitous problems faced by humanity. Now, if we lived in a totalitarian state where all the differently disabled had been slaughtered, then those great discoveries might not have been found. Okay, let's continue. And so let's once again return to the opening lesson and depression. Depressions cause systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation is many causes. And sometimes it can be politics. Allow me to elaborate. A common tool to prevent systemic inflammation or reverse it are lifestyle choices. But if one doesn't have access to whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic fruits and veggies, grains, legumes, mushrooms, seeds and nuts, and pulses, then it's very, very difficult to prevent or reverse the systemic inflammation that can cause depression. What has that to do with politics? Sadly, I live in a country that for the last 100 years or so has waged economic wars on smaller countries whose economic systems they felt threatened by. And so a great, big, huge country would create, I forgot there's a special word for it, sanctions, economic sanctions, and sometimes downright blockades. You know, off the coast of Florida, there is a country called Cuba, and we don't like their economy, so we have been waging economic war on them for the better part of 100 years. Maybe not exactly, but you know what I'm saying. At least 75 years. That's a long, long time. And so Bullies aren't unique to childhood schoolyards. Countries can behave as bullies. In my country, my new president and his vice president bullied the visiting head of state yesterday, to the great shame of every right-thinking human on my continent. Um, but yes, political circumstances can create the deprivation, which makes the meeting of our lifestyle needs almost an impossibility. Let us be kind to one another as individuals and as groups. Therefore, it should come as little surprise that 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. Let's meditate. Welcome to the third quarter of this morning's live stream. Upon the tip of our left middle finger, we could rest the great knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the heart region of our chest. Let us review how mindfulness works. Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all manner of phenomena. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. What are we to do with that which we notice? Why meditate, of course? You see, every time we exhale, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, we're already wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Knowing this, how can we best cooperate with our autonomic nervous system? Simple. We could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this as well as the monosyllabic verb ease during each of our respective inhalations and exhalations. Together, let us practice right now. Now remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Welcome to the final quarter of this morning's live stream. Upon the tip of our left ring finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the navel region of our mid-abdomen. Let's briefly review mindfulness. Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice dualities, such as lack and boon, pain and bliss, scorn and praise, shame and fame. What are we to do with such dualities? Why, we meditate upon them. For every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, we are wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Bearing this in mind, how can we best cooperate with this autonomic nervous system? Doing so is as easy as silently and mentally reciting both the demonstrative pronoun this as well as the one-syllable verb ease during our respective or their respective inhalations and exhalations. Together, let us practice as a team right now. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.